The revelry and celebratory cheers that had filled the streets of Earth's major cities just hours earlier had faded, replaced by a palpable sense of dread and uncertainty. The hard-won victory over the alien forces that had threatened humanity's very existence had been savored only briefly before disturbing reports began to circulate. On the video screens and communication channels that connected the nations of the world, the faces of world leaders, once jubilant, now bore grave expressions as they conveyed the unsettling news. A more powerful alien empire, one that had observed the previous conflict from afar, had now set its sights on the vulnerable planet, determined to subjugate the upstart human race. "This cannot be," exclaimed the President of the United States, her brow furrowed with a mixture of disbelief and determination. "We have only just tasted freedom from the yoke of alien oppression. We will not surrender it so easily." Across the globe, her sentiments were echoed by the leaders of every nation, their voices rising in a chorus of defiance. But beneath the outward display of resolve, there was an undercurrent of fear. The enemy they now faced was far more advanced, their technologies and military capabilities dwarfing those that humanity had barely managed to overcome. In the days that followed, the world's scientists, engineers, and military strategists were summoned to hastily convened conferences, their expertise urgently required. Behind closed doors, they pored over the scant intelligence gathered about the looming alien threat, their normally spirited debates tinged with a sense of dread. "Their ships are larger, their weapons more devastating," one admiral remarked grimly, his eyes fixed on the holographic display that depicted the enemy's formidable armada. "Our current arsenal will not be enough to repel them." Beside him, a lead scientist nodded slowly, her expression grim. "Then we must find a way to even the odds. Time is not on our side, but if we work together, perhaps we can develop the technologies needed to stand against this new foe." As the discussions continued, a renewed sense of purpose began to take hold. Where once there had been division and competition between nations, a newfound unity emerged, born of the shared realization that the survival of their species hung in the balance. Resources and expertise were pooled, bureaucratic barriers swept aside in the face of the looming alien onslaught. In laboratories and research facilities across the globe, scientists toiled around the clock, driven by the urgency of their task. Breakthroughs in propulsion, shielding, and weapons systems came in rapid succession, each discovery met with cautious optimism by the military commanders tasked with integrating the new technologies into their forces. As the preparations unfolded, the people of Earth watched with a mixture of anxiety and resolve. They had tasted the bitter sting of alien subjugation, and the thought of surrendering their hard-won freedom was unthinkable. With unwavering determination, they readied themselves to defend their homeworld, their spirits buoyed by the knowledge that their leaders had, for once, set aside their differences in the face of a common foe. The stage was set for a confrontation that would decide the fate of humanity. The celebratory cheers had faded, but in their place burned a fire of defiance that would not be extinguished. The world's top scientific minds gathered in a series of hastily convened conferences, the gravity of their task weighing heavily upon them. Seated around tables in high-security command centers, they pored over the limited intelligence gathered about the alien juggernaut that now loomed on the horizon, their brows furrowed in deep concentration. "Their ships are larger, their weapons more advanced than anything we've encountered before," remarked Dr. Amara Patel, a renowned astrophysicist and the director of the International Space Agency. "If we are to have any hope of defeating them, we'll need to develop technologies that can match, if not exceed, their capabilities." Murmurs of agreement rippled through the assembled experts, their expressions grim. The alien forces that had been vanquished in the previous conflict had been formidable enough, but this new enemy posed an even greater threat. Humanity's survival now rested on their ability to innovate and adapt at a pace that defied the very limits of scientific progress. "Time is not on our side," interjected General Mikhail Ivanov, the commander of the newly formed Global Defense Initiative. "We need breakthroughs, and we need them yesterday. The fate of our species hangs in the balance." The scientists nodded, their resolve hardening. They knew that failure was not an option, that the very future of humanity depended on their ability to rise to the challenge. With renewed determination, they set to work, dividing into specialized teams and tackling the most pressing problems one by one. In laboratories and research facilities across the globe, the pace of innovation quickened. Breakthroughs in propulsion systems promised to vastly increase the speed and maneuverability of human spacecraft, while advancements in shielding technology offered the promise of impenetrable defenses. Engineers toiled tirelessly to develop new generations of directed energy weapons, their potency capable of matching the alien arsenals. As the days turned into weeks, the sense of urgency only grew more palpable. Reports from the outer colonies painted a grim picture of the enemy's steady advance, their massive warships methodically subjugating every world they encountered. The people of Earth watched these developments with a mixture of fear and defiance, their prayers for deliverance echoing through the halls of power. "We cannot allow them to reach our homeworld," declared the Prime Minister of the United Kingdom, her voice resonating with a steely determination. "Whatever it takes, we must be ready to meet them with overwhelming force." The assembled leaders nodded in solemn agreement, their resolve strengthened by the knowledge that failure was not an option. They knew that the next confrontation would be the defining moment in humanity's history, a clash that would determine whether their species would rise to the stars as masters of their own destiny, or be consigned to the annals of history as a failed experiment. In the laboratories and research facilities, the scientists worked with a renewed sense of purpose, their innovations driven by the urgency of their task. For the fate of their world hung in the balance, and they would not rest until the tools of victory were forged. Driven by the weight of their responsibility and the urgency of their mission, the scientific community worked with a feverish intensity that defied the limits of human endurance. Across the globe, in laboratories and research facilities, brilliant minds collaborated, sharing breakthroughs and overcoming obstacles with a relentless determination. Dr. Amara Patel, her eyes burning with a fierce determination, led a team of propulsion specialists in a race to develop engines capable of propelling human ships at unprecedented speeds. "We need to be able to outmaneuver the alien vessels," she declared, her voice tinged with a sense of grim resolve. "If we can't match their firepower, we must at least be able to evade them." Night and day, her team toiled, exploring the boundaries of known physics and pushing the limits of engineering. Simulations and prototypes were tested and refined, each breakthrough building upon the last as they inched closer to a revolutionary new propulsion system. Across the campus, in a secure laboratory complex, Dr. Mikhail Ivanov and his team of weapons specialists were making their own remarkable strides. Drawing upon the lessons learned from the previous conflict, they developed directed energy weapons that could rival the destructive power of the alien arsenals. Powerful particle beams and concentrated bursts of electromagnetic radiation were harnessed, their energy amplified to levels that could pierce even the most advanced alien shielding. "These weapons will be the key to our victory," Ivanov declared, his expression grim but resolute. "With them, we can take the fight to the enemy and put an end to their campaign of subjugation." As the weeks turned into months, the scientific community's efforts began to bear fruit. Breakthroughs in shielding technology offered the promise of impenetrable defenses, while advancements in materials science paved the way for the construction of sturdier, more resilient spacecraft. The military commanders, their once skeptical expressions gradually giving way to cautious optimism, began to integrate these new systems into their battle plans. In the political arena, the leaders of the world's nations set aside their differences, pouring resources and support into the global scientific initiative. Bureaucratic barriers were swept aside, and funding flowed freely as the realization dawned that the survival of their species hung in the balance. "This is our moment," the President of the United States declared, addressing the assembled world leaders. "We must put aside our petty squabbles and unite as one, for the enemy we face cares not for the divisions that have plagued us in the past. Together we will forge the tools of our deliverance, and when the time comes, We will stand as one against the alien invaders." The leaders nodded in solemn agreement, their resolve hardening. They knew that the coming conflict would be a defining moment in the history of humanity, a clash that would determine whether their species would rise to the stars as masters of their own destiny or be consigned to the annals of history as a failed experiment. In the laboratories and research facilities, the scientists worked with a renewed sense of purpose, their innovations driven by the urgency of their task. For the fate of their world hung in the balance, and they would not rest until the tools of victory were forged. The day of the long-awaited confrontation had finally arrived, and the unified forces of Earth readied themselves for the coming onslaught. Across the solar system, human spacecraft equipped with the latest in propulsion, shielding, and weapons technology took up defensive positions, their crews grim but resolute. In command of the global defense fleet, General Mikhail Ivanov stood on the bridge of the flagship, his eyes narrowed as he studied the tactical display. The alien armada had emerged from the void, its massive warships blotting out the stars like a swarm of ravenous locusts. Beside him, the scientists who had developed the fleet's arsenal stood ready, their expressions tense but determined. "Begin the attack run," Ivanov ordered, his voice steady and unwavering. "Target their command and control first. We need to disrupt their coordination if we're to have any hope of victory." As one, the human ships surged forward, their powerful engines propelling them with unparalleled speed. Beams of concentrated energy lashed out, their deadly intensity carving through the alien shields like a hot knife through butter. The enemy vessels, caught off guard by the ferocity of the assault, struggled to retaliate. But the alien commander, a cunning and ruthless tactician, was not to be underestimated. Rallying his forces, he launched a devastating counterattack, his ships unleashing a barrage of devastating firepower that tested the limits of the human defenses. The battle raged on, with both sides employing their most advanced weaponry. The sky above Earth was lit by a dazzling display of energy beams and explosive ordnance, the very fabric of space seeming to tremble under the weight of the clash. For every alien vessel that was destroyed, another took its place, the enemy's sheer numerical advantage slowly grinding down the human forces. Ivanov gritted his teeth, his knuckles whitening as he tightened his grip on the command console. "We're taking heavy losses," one of the officers reported, his voice tinged with a hint of panic. "If this keeps up, we won't be able to hold them off much longer." Ivanov's jaw tightened, his mind racing as he sought a solution. The scientists had assured him that their technologies would be the key to victory, but the alien commander's tactics were proving to be a formidable challenge. Suddenly, a new report came in, one that sent a chill down the general's spine. "Sir, the enemy has breached our defenses and is targeting one of our major population centers. Casualties are already in the millions." Ivanov's eyes widened, a flash of pure rage flaring in their depths. The senseless loss of life, the devastation inflicted upon his people, was more than he could bear. Slamming his fist down on the console, he turned to the assembled crew, his voice thundering with a righteous fury. "Divert all available firepower to that location. We'll show these alien bastards the true might of humanity. No more will we cower in the face of their aggression. This ends today." As the human forces surged forward, their weapons blazing with renewed intensity, the general knew that the fate of their world hung in the balance. They had come too far, sacrificed too much, to surrender now. This was their moment, their reckoning, and they would not be denied. The human forces, their resolve hardened by the senseless loss of life, fought with a newfound intensity that seemed to defy the laws of physics. Propelled by powerful engines, their ships darted and weaved through the maelstrom of weapons fire, their advanced shielding deflecting even the most devastating attacks. But for every alien vessel they destroyed, two more seemed to take its place, the enemy's sheer numerical advantage gradually overwhelming the human defenses. Amidst the chaos of the battle, General Ivanov gritted his teeth, his eyes narrowed as he watched the tactical displays with a growing sense of frustration. "We're bleeding too many ships," he growled, his fist slamming down on the command console. At this rate, we won't be able to hold them off much longer. Beside him, the scientists who had developed the fleet's arsenal exchanged concerned glances, their expressions etched with a mixture of determination and dread. They had poured their hearts and souls into these technologies, believing them to be the key to victory, but now they could see the limitations of their work in the face of the alien onslaught. Suddenly, a new report came in, one that sent a chill down the general's spine. "Sir, the enemy has breached our defenses and is launching an attack on New York City. Preliminary estimates suggest millions of casualties." Ivanov's eyes widened, his jaw clenching as a wave of pure fury washed over him. The senseless slaughter of innocent lives, the utter disregard for the sanctity of human existence, was more than he could bear. Slamming his fist down on the console, he turned to the assembled crew, his voice thundering with righteous rage. "Target that attack force with everything we've got. I want those bastards annihilated, no matter the cost. We will not stand idly by while they butcher our people." The human ships surged forward, their weapons blazing with unbridled fury. Beams of concentrated energy tore through the alien vessels, their shields unable to withstand the onslaught. But for every enemy ship they destroyed, another took its place, the relentless tide of the alien assault seemingly unstoppable. As the battle raged on, the people of Earth watched with a mixture of horror and defiance. They had tasted the bitter sting of alien subjugation before, and the thought of surrendering their hard-won freedom was unthinkable. With unwavering determination, they readied themselves to defend their homeworld, their spirits buoyed by the knowledge that their leaders had, for once, set aside their differences in the face of a common foe. In the command center, Ivanov's face was etched with a grim determination as he watched the tactical displays. The fate of their world hung in the balance, and he knew that failure was not an option. Turning to the scientists, he spoke in a voice laced with a sense of urgency. "We need a new plan, something that can turn the tide of this battle. If we don't find a way to cripple their command and control, we'll be fighting a losing battle until the last of us is gone. The survival of our species depends on it." The scientists exchanged a determined glance, their minds already racing with the possibilities. They had come too far, sacrificed too much, to surrender now. This was their moment, their reckoning, and they would not be denied. The anguished cries of the people of Earth echoed through the command center as news of the devastating attack on New York City spread. Millions had perished in the devastating bombardment, their lives snuffed out in an instant by the callous brutality of the alien invaders. General Ivanov's jaw clenched, his fists tightening on the edge of the command console as a wave of pure fury washed over him. The senseless loss of life, the utter disregard for the sanctity of human existence, was more than he could bear. Turning to the assembled scientists, his voice thundered with a righteous anger. "This ends today. I want a plan, and I want it now. We will take the fight directly to the enemy's homeworld and deliver a blow they will never recover from." The scientists, their own grief and outrage evident in their expressions, nodded with grim determination. They had poured their hearts and souls into developing the technologies that now defended their world, and they would be damned if they let the alien invaders triumph. "We'll need our most experienced and battle-hardened veterans for this mission," Dr. Amara Patel said, her voice steady despite the turmoil within. "Their skills and knowledge will be essential if we're to have any hope of penetrating deep into enemy territory." Ivanov nodded, his mind already racing with the details of the plan. "Assemble the strike force. I want them ready to depart within the hour. We can't afford to waste a single moment." As the scientists dispersed to carry out their orders, the general turned his attention to the ongoing battle, his eyes narrowing as he studied the tactical displays. The human forces, though outmatched in numbers, were holding their own, their advanced technologies and unwavering determination keeping the alien onslaught at bay. But Ivanov knew that this was only a temporary reprieve. The enemy commander, a ruthless and cunning tactician, would undoubtedly regroup and launch a renewed assault, one that could very well overwhelm the human defenses. Time was of the essence, and he was determined to seize the initiative before that could happen. In the hangar bays of the human fleet, the most experienced and battle-hardened veterans assembled, their faces etched with a grim determination. They knew the risks they were about to undertake, the slim chance of success, but their resolve was unshakable. This was their moment, their chance to strike a blow that could turn the tide of the war. As the sleek, high-powered spacecraft took to the skies, their powerful engines propelling them towards the distant alien homeworld, the people of Earth watched with a mixture of hope and trepidation. The fate of their world hung in the balance, and they could only pray that the daring mission would succeed. In the command center, Ivanov stood tall, his eyes fixed on the retreating ships. He knew that the survival of their species depended on the success of this mission, and he would not rest until the alien invaders were driven from their shores, their threat to humanity forever extinguished. "Godspeed, my friends," he whispered, his voice barely audible over the din of the ongoing battle. "May your courage and skill be the salvation of us all." The human strike force, comprising the most experienced and battle-hardened veterans, navigated the treacherous void of space with a level of skill and precision that defied the limits of human capabilities. Powered by the latest in propulsion technology, their sleek, high-speed ships cut through the darkness like arrows, their pilots' reflexes honed to a razor's edge. As they drew closer to the alien homeworld, the tension aboard the vessels palpable, the veterans reviewed the mission plan one final time, their faces etched with a grim determination. They knew the risks they were about to undertake, the slim chance of success, but their resolve was unshakable. This was their moment, their chance to strike a decisive blow against the enemy that had threatened the very existence of their species. "Remember, our objective is to infiltrate the enemy's command and control center and cripple their leadership." The mission commander, a seasoned veteran with decades of combat experience, addressed the assembled crew. "Without their coordination, the alien forces will be thrown into disarray, and we'll have a chance to turn the tide of this war." The pilots nodded, their hands steady on the controls as they prepared to execute the daring maneuver. With a precise series of course corrections and evasive maneuvers, the human ships slipped past the alien defenses, their advanced shielding and sensor masking technologies rendering them all but invisible to the enemy's detection grids. As they neared the target, the tension aboard the vessels reached a fever pitch. The slightest misstep, the smallest error, could spell disaster for the entire mission. But the veterans, their nerves of steel forged in the crucible of countless battles, remained calm and focused, their training and experience guiding their every move. With a series of well-timed strikes, the human ships penetrated the enemy's command center, their powerful directed energy weapons carving a path of destruction through the aliens' defenses. The enemy leadership, caught off guard by the audacity and precision of the attack, scrambled to mount a counteroffensive, but their efforts were hampered by the disruption of their command and control systems. Seizing the initiative, the human strike force pressed their advantage, raining down devastating blows upon the enemy's most vital installations. Explosions rocked the alien homeworld, their shockwaves rippling through the very fabric of space as the invaders' infrastructure crumbled under the onslaught. Back on Earth, the people watched the unfolding events with a mixture of awe and trepidation. The fate of their world hung in the balance, and they could only pray that the daring mission would succeed. In the command center, General Ivanov stood tall, his eyes fixed on the tactical displays as he monitored the progress of the strike force. "They're doing it," he murmured, a glimmer of hope igniting in his chest. "By the gods, they're actually doing it." As the alien defenses continued to crumble, the human ships broke away from the target, their pilots pushing their engines to the limit as they made their perilous escape. The mission had been a success, a decisive blow struck against the enemy's command and control, but the battle was far from over. With a renewed sense of purpose, the human forces regrouped, their morale buoyed by the knowledge that their comrades had delivered a crippling blow to the alien invaders. The stage was set for the final confrontation, a clash that would determine the fate of their world. and the future of humanity. With the alien leadership's command and control in disarray, the human forces seized the initiative, pouring every ounce of their technological and military might into a relentless counteroffensive. Propelled by the fury of their people and the determination to avenge the lives lost in the aliens' murderous rampage, the battle-hardened veterans spearheaded the assault, their advanced ships darting and weaving through the chaos of the battlefield. Beams of searing energy lanced out from the humans' arsenal, piercing through the alien vessels' shields with devastating precision. One by one, the enemy's formidable warships were reduced to drifting, lifeless hulks, their crews either vaporized or left to the merciless vacuum of space. General Ivanov, his weathered features etched with a grim determination, directed the flow of the battle from the command center, his eyes constantly scanning the tactical displays for any sign of weakness in the alien defenses. With each passing minute, the human forces gained ground, their superior maneuverability and firepower slowly grinding down the invaders' resilience. "Keep the pressure on," Ivanov barked, his voice thundering across the comm channels. "We can't let them regroup. Push forward and show these alien bastards the true might of humanity." Inspired by their commander's unwavering resolve, the human pilots pushed their ships to the limit, their engines roaring as they unleashed a relentless barrage of attacks. The alien vessels, once a seemingly unstoppable juggernaut, began to falter, their defensive capabilities crumbling under the sheer weight of the human onslaught. As the battle raged on, the people of Earth watched with bated breath, their prayers and cheers echoing through the streets of the cities that had so narrowly escaped the aliens' wrath. The weight of their civilization, their very survival, rested on the shoulders of the brave men and women who fought in the skies above. And at last, the tide began to turn. One by one, the alien warships succumbed to the humans' devastating firepower, their hulls breached, and their crews vanquished. The once mighty alien armada, reduced to a ragged, demoralized remnant, attempted a hasty retreat, their commanders finally realizing the futility of their crusade against the tenacious spirit of humanity. In the command center, Ivanov allowed himself a brief grim smile as he watched the retreating alien vessels. "That's right, you bastards," he murmured, "run and hide. Your days of terrorizing our people are over." As the last of the alien ships disappeared into the void, the people of Earth erupted in a thunderous roar of triumph, their spirits lifted by the knowledge that they had not only defended their homeworld, but had carved out a place for humanity among the stars. The celebration, which had been so abruptly cut short by the aliens' arrival, resumed with a fervor that seemed to shake the very fabric of the planet. Amidst the revelry, Ivanov stood tall, his eyes scanning the faces of the weary but victorious human forces. They had proven themselves, not just to the alien invaders, but to the very cosmos itself. And as he watched the cheering throngs, the general knew that this was only the beginning, the first step in humanity's journey to claim its rightful place among the stars.